China is now preparing for a change in leadership 2 years from now. The Central Committee of the ruling Communist Party is mulling a new 5-year plan. So, where is China headed? The Australian Institute for International Affairs recently held a one-day forum on China, and one of those present was Colleen Ryan, the China editor of the Australian Financial Review. Colleen, where do you see China is headed, and what should we be looking out for?
Well, I think in terms of the 5-year plan, what we should really be watching for is what level of growth rate that they set as a target. The 5-year plan target rate is usually a floor rather than a ceiling, but for the last 5-year plan it was 7.5%, and all the speculation seems to be that it might be 7% this time, which means a slight slowing of growth in China, stepping back, taking a breath, restructuring, and I think that's very important for Australian resources demand.
Yes, and it would also change the trajectory of China's surging growth. And if that graph wasn't to keep going upwards, then the expectation that China might overtake the United States as an economy in 15 years' time would perhaps be wrong.
Well, I think that it probably still will. When you look at the growth target for the 11th 5-year plan of 7.5%, well, what they came out with was nearly 11%. If this time it's 7%, what they might come out with is, higher than that. And China only needs to grow by 7.7% to be 4 times the size of the economy it is today by 2030. And don't forget that the US is, their growth is slowing, and so I think it's highly likely that China will surpass the US by 2025, even at a slower growth rate.
Colleen, one of the things you raised at the forum was the whole question of China's energy security.
Well, I think energy and resources demand to fuel their growth is a real problem for them. Secure supply of oil, of iron ore, of gas. It's overshadowing their international relations. We're seeing that in their relations with Central Asia and Africa and Iran and Iraq. And we've seen it to a degree in Australia too, where it's caused real tensions over investment policy, over pricing, and I guess the flashpoint was when we saw the attitude towards Rio pulling out of its joint venture with Chinalco, and eventually leading, I believe, to the arrest of the 4 Rio executives.
Are Australia's relations with China on an even keel, or could they be improved?
They were at a real low point in 2009 after the Rio arrests and after the visit of Rabia Qadir, the Uyghur activist. I think they're now back on an even keel, but I think both sides have to be very careful that the tension over resource pricing and resource availability doesn't lead to an increase in tensions again.
You also raised the question of Australia's attitude to Chinese inward investment. You said you thought it was evolving, but I felt from the use of that term that you really were rather critical of the way the Australians are behaving.
Well, I think, yes, it is evolving and very slowly, but I think the Australian reaction's been quite clumsy. We just have to get over the fact that the big Chinese strategic industry companies are state-owned, and they're going to be the big investors in Australia, and we really have not made it clear what the Australian government's attitude is towards investment by state-owned companies. We have to do that, whether it's a positive reaction or a negative reaction. We have to decide on a firm policy and let the Chinese know clearly.
Now, you participated in this full-day forum. Was it worthwhile?
Well, what I got out of it in particular was the excellent contributions by the Chinese participants. Some of them were academics based at Australian universities, and others were visiting from China. But I thought that they were very transparent in their approach, very honest in their views, and very good presenters. And it's some of the best Chinese commentary I've seen. Maybe that's because it's outside of China, but I don't think so. I think they were just very good participants. It was a very good discussion.
Colleen Ryan, thank you very much. And there'll be a full report of that forum on the Institute's website at www.ain.edu. aia.asn.au. Thanks very much for listening.